Hello and welcome. My name is Nick Wilmot, and in this video, I'm going to provide a brief overview on something that's talked about a lot, but in practice, it generally could be executed a lot better. And that's business processes, and more specifically, how we document those business processes through process models. So, to start, I want to get some definitions out of the way. So, starting at the top, we can define what a process is as any set of related activities that are needed to achieve some specific goal or specific outcome. And from here, we can derive what a business process is. So, a business process are when these activities are performed within business units of an organization or an enterprise that are in support of that firm's overall goals and objectives. Now, to the right here, you can see the building blocks of what a process really is. And as we go throughout the video, we'll break these down a little bit more. But for now, we can just understand that these processes are made up of three key components: activities, roles, and finally objects. So, taking a look at activities, what are activities in the context of a process and in the context of process modeling? Activities are actions that produce value towards reaching the goal that the business unit or the team sets out to do. So generally, when we're putting these down on paper, these should be labeled with leading verbs like create, develop, submit, review, etc. So over the course of the next few slides here, we'll kind of use an example here that is all driven off of this short three-step sequence of activities that you see on the screen right now. So something that a lot of people are familiar with working in the professional world, and that's change requests. So we can see our sequence of activities here. We're submitting a change request. Then in turn, that change request is going to be reviewed by someone. And then finally, after it's reviewed, if it is decided upon that it's going to take effect, then someone is going to have to implement that change. So all we know right now, just from looking at the activities, is what's happening. We don't know anything else. So the next component of our process are our roles, and then in turn, what are the responsibilities of those roles? So some things that we need to know to give a process its context is who's responsible for doing what, who needs to know, who needs to be informed of what's going on throughout the process, and also who can help out, who can support the activities that are needed to get to the ultimate deliverable or deliverables throughout the process. So getting back to our case of the change request, we kind of have three players in this process. So we have an engineer, a manager, and an analyst. Just looking at the raw list of roles, we haven't really given them any context as to how they're applied to the process, but we just know we have three players in this process, and we'll see eventually how they interact with the activities. So the third key component that was outlined is objects. So what are objects? People call these artifacts, people call these deliverables, and at a very high level, these are just pieces of data that are used to execute the process, pieces of data that are needed to finish that process. So this could be a form, a template. In the case of our process example, we have a change request. So that change request might be a Microsoft Word document. This might be an Excel document. Maybe you're using a formal change management system. Either way, you kind of have this object of bundled together data that when it's displayed to an end user or displayed to anyone in the organization, they would consider it a change request. And then on the flip side of that, we have the change implementation plan, which again is something that's bundled together attributes to form this artifact or this object that's used within the process. So now we can put this all together in what we could consider a business process model. So a business process model in our context is all of the key components of the process that I've already discussed together in a graphical representation. And this is really useful and really important that it can be easily comprehended among all the stakeholders of the process. So here in our little model that we have here, you can see how all the key components that were outlined are working together. So first, at the front, we have our task, our first activity of submitting the change request. And we can see that the engineer is the one submitting the change request, and they're using the object of the change request as it exists in a template. So they get a template, fill it out. You can see it gets filled in before it goes to the activity of reviewing the change. So the manager is going to review this change request after it's filled in by the engineer, after they've submitted it. And upon approval, that change request can be used to start working on the next object, which is the change implementation plan. And as that's filled in, or filled out, I should say, the analyst, so this is in this example, an operations analyst, someone in that sort of role, goes and implements the change request based on that change implementation plan. And finally, upon the implementation, they would in turn completely fill in that plan, and it would be stored somewhere as a business record for this process's organization. So that's been it. I hope you enjoyed this brief overview of what is a business process and kind of walking through how we put those business processes into process models.